Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to look at the last deck from Champions of Kamigawa, which is Way of the Warrior, which is this mono-white deck which focuses all on Samurai. So, we got a deck list here. It's 20 creatures, 8 instants, 6 enchantments, 2 artifacts and 24 planes, mana curve off to the side there. Let's look at these Samurai. So, yeah, Samurai Tribal. In white, which was the color that cared most about Samurai in original Kamigawa. Yeah, so yeah, this is a pretty solid deck, honestly, I think. Let's start looking at it. So we're going to start off by looking at one of these flip cards, Bushi Tenderfoot. So it's 1 white mana for a 1/1. And whenever a creature dealt damage by Bushi Tenderfoot this turn is put into a graveyard, you flip it into Kenzo the Hard-Hearted, who is a 3/4 with double strike and Bushido 2. Bushido being an ability that all the Kamigawa Samurai had, or the original block Kamigawa. They dropped it in Neon Dynasty. Just means Bushido is whenever they block or become blocked, they get a power toughness boost. So Bushi Tenderfoot, honestly, obviously hard to make him. Yeah, obviously he wants to do combat damage to something and then survive the turn so he can flip. There are a few ways of making it happen. You've got enough equipment and I think buff spells to make it happen. And like the payoff is honestly pretty good for a 3/4 double striker. Yeah, so I think you managed to get him flip early. It would have been pretty good. You would have given you good momentum for the rest of the game there. But I just think it's kind of adorable. This is before dual face cards. This is what we had. We had the flip cards. They're kind of charming and weird. I like the flip cards. Anyway, we have Nagao, Bound by Honor, who is 4 mana for a 3/3 with Bushido 1. Whenever Nagao attacks, Samurai you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Yep, nice sort of simple buff effect for your Samurai. Yeah, I think he's perfectly fine. I think he's well costed, 4 mana for a 3/3 with Bushido 1. The greedy part of me wish he had like Vigilance or First Strike as well. But yeah, I think he's okay. Yeah, for an uncommon legendary creature, I think it's okay. So one of the rares in the deck is Takano, Samurai General, who's Big Daddy Samurai. So he's 6 mana for 3/3 with Bushido 2, and every other Samurai you control gets +1/+1 for every point of Bushido it has, which is pretty good. Annoying that he doesn't affect himself, but it's fine. The fact this makes Nagao, like, he makes him 4/4, makes Kenzo a 5/6 with double strike, which would be pretty hard to deal with. I think Takano's like he's all right. He's just a solid tribal legendary. And then we have a bunch more Samurai here. So 4 Devoted Retainers, just a 1/1 for 1 with Bushido 1, which is okay. Kitsune Blade Master, 4 of those. A lot of play sets of these, which is good. I sort of mentioned last time when I was looking at Spirit Bane that this deck being monocolored in the first set of the block means that the card pool is quite shallow. So I think to fill up space, that's why there's quite a lot of play sets of cards. Anyway, Kitsune Blade Master I think is probably one of the better Samurai from original Kamigawa. So 3 mana for a 2/2 First Strike, which is like decently costed, and has Bushido 1. So if he blocks, goes up to 3/3 First Strike, which lets him like really punch up. The same way things are going to be really reluctant to block him, I think. I think Kitsune Blade Master is pretty good. It's sadly one of the better Kitsune as well, because they're this tribe of like fox people, which is very keeping in with sort of like Japanese mythology and stuff. It's pretty cool. Unfortunately, just like a lot of Kitsune in the rest of Kamigawa block are pretty bad, or like they're super overcosted. They have really weak effects. But Kitsune Blade Master is all right. 4 Moth Rider Samurai, so it's just essentially Windrake with Bushido 1. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine to have a flying samurai. And then 3 Konda's Hatamoto. These are kind of interesting. So 2 mana for a 1/2 with Bushido 1. But if you have a legendary samurai, they get +1/+2 in Vigilance. So this is where Vigilance has now finally been keyworded. So honestly, having like Nagao or Takano out, making these guys like a 2/4 with vigilance for only like 2 mana, and Bushido as well, it honestly makes them, I think, pretty good. Yeah, I think they're all right. Without the without having a legendary samurai out there, obviously I think a bit overcosted, possibly. But yeah, no, I think the payoff there is good enough that you would want to play them. And then finally, 2 samurai enforcers. These are the big fat samurai. 6 mana for a 4/4 with Bushido 2. They're just kind of like the muscle of the deck, honestly. Maybe a little overcosted at 6 mana for a 4/4. Because the thing about Bushido is, it is conditional. It doesn't always go off. So if they get through unblocked, you've kind of paid kind of too much mana just to have a 4/4, really. So it would have been nice if they had like an extra ability or something, but it's okay. The thing is, I feel like with some of these samurai, they're costed as if their Bushido effect is always going to go off. Like if they were, if they were 6/6 standard, ignore it. If they didn't have Bushido, say, and they were just 6/6, then they'd be just 6 mana for a 6/6, which would be okay. But the fact that Takano would make them a 6/6 and then with Bushido too. Anyway, they're fine. I think just maybe a little overcosted. So then we've got like a bunch of auras. So they're still not auras yet. 9th edition is when they become auras. So we have 2 Cage of Hands. So 3 mana. This is basically pacifism that you can then bounce back to your hand, which I think is pretty good because then you can, return it and then play it on another creature. So I think Cage of Hands is pretty good. 2 Indomitable Will, 2 mana, which it's got Flash, and Enchanted Creature says +1/+2, so it's basically Holy Strength with Flash, which is fine. This is something you want to put on the Bushi Tenderfoot, so just so he can survive a combat and then flip into Kenzo. 2, just Vigilance. Enchanted Creature has Vigilance. What more do you need to know? So yeah, this would be alright actually on quite a lot of the Samurai, because then it means they can attack. People would probably your opponent might not want to block them to give them the Bushido boost, and then you've got them next turn to block and then also become a better blocker because of Bushido. So yeah, kind of. I don't know if it's still worth 1 white mana for an aura that does that. Like I don't know, but this is the time where auras are still, I guess, kind of weak and kind of viewed as kind of like maybe not great cards. Anyway. A single Blessed Breath, 1 white mana. It's an arcane instant. I don't think you've got any cards in the deck that care about arcane spells in particular. Target creature you control gets protection from the color of your choice till end of turn. Great. We love seeing like this kind of 1 white mana combat trick that gives protection at instant speed. It's cropped up a lot in previous decks I've looked at, and I'm always going to say it's like such a strong effect, I think, to give. Protects your creature from removal, lets them get through unblocked. Takes off enemy auras. Loads of good stuff that can be done by giving protection at instant speed, and it has Splice onto Arcane. So Splice being that we've touched on Splice in previous videos. Basically, Splice means if you play another arcane spell like Candle's Glow, which is right there, you can reveal Blessed Breath from your hand, pay the Splice cost, which is just 1 white mana, which is excellent, and then you basically add Blessed Breath's text onto the spell, onto say Candle's Glow. And you don't cast Blessed Breath. You're just adding its text onto another spell, which I think is such a fun mechanic, and like I really don't think it got used as much as it should have. 2 Call to Glory. This is kind of like your tribal buff spells. So 2 mana instant, untap all creature you control, which is pretty good. And so surprise blockers out of nowhere. And Samurai you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Pretty much every creature in the deck is a samurai, so this applies to pretty much all of them anyway. I think the only one is like Bushi Tenderfoot, who's a soldier and then becomes a samurai. Anyway. Candle's Glow, 2 mana instant arcane. You prevent 3 damage. That would be target creature will play this turn, and you gain 1 life for every damage prevented that way. Not awful, honestly. Again, it's got Splice. You don't have a lot of arcane spells in the deck to like do this kind of splicing. Yeah. But this is another way for Bushi Tenderfoot to kind of attack and survive, It's okay. So the other rare of the deck is Hold the Line. So it's 3 mana to give righteousness. So +7/+7 to all your blocking creatures, which is like a huge buff. And obviously is super good on defense. Your opponent can be attacking with everything. And this makes all your blocking creatures. You're almost certainly going to win combat because of hold the line. Yeah, I think it's all right. One on the Otherworldly Journey. So this got a lot of hype at the time when it was released because I think this was really White's first steps into like flicker effects. Oh no, it's a blink effect. There is a difference because this returns the creature end of turn, so it's a blink, whereas flicker is instantly it leaves and then comes back in straight away. But yeah, this is pretty good. Like 2 mana to exile a creature until end of turn, and then it comes back with a +1/+1 counter on it. So you've got a lot of uses for that. Actually, you could get a creature out of the way that's going to be blocking, so it just gets out of the way, so you can get something through. You can use this on one of your creatures to just power it up, like save it from a removal spell, and then it comes back stronger. Yeah, Otherworldly Journey is pretty good, and I say it generated, I think, quite a lot of hype at the time. 2 reciprocates. This is pretty fun as well. 1 white mana, instant, exile a creature that dealt damage to you this turn. I used to think this card was amazing. In a time when like Swords to Plowshares hadn't been reprinted like a million times, like it has been now. This was pretty tasty, honestly. Just 1 white mana to exile anything. Obviously, you had to take kind of a hit from it first, but yeah, fine. I think perfectly good white removal spell at uncommon. And then 2 Nodachis. I mean, you got to have a samurai sword in a samurai deck, really, haven't you? 2 mana equipment, and gives the equipped creature +2/+0 on first strike, which is like a big enough boost to turn pretty much anything, I think, into a threat, especially the first strike. I say when you've got all the Bushido effects as well. So yeah, Nodachi is a decent piece of equipment. So what could have been? So overall, I do think the deck is actually, I think it's doing the best it can, honestly, with the cards available too. As I say, like it being monocolor means it's got a limited card pool to work from. But even so, there's some alternate rares I think that could have gone in here. One thing I really wish had been here is Terashi's Cry, which is this 4 mana sorcery that you just tap creatures, so gets kind of blockers out of the way. And I'm going to go off on a tangent here. Is what really annoys me is that to this day we've never got a card for Tarashi, who is mentioned in a few cards, like either in the name or the flavor text. So he's like the Kami of the Sun, and he just never got a card, and he's mentioned so many times. I would have loved to get a Tarashi card. It probably would have been unplayable. Like it probably would have been really bad, but like it just seems weird that Tarashi gets mentioned a lot and just never gets a card. I don't know. So alternate rares here. So to reiterate, I think Takano is a good rare to have. Like has a good tribal effect on all your samurai. Hold the Line, I think, is not so wonderful. So maybe it could be one of these. So you had Konda, Lord of Eganjo, who is he's the big bad essentially of Kamigawa. He's the one that, like in the lore, he kidnaps like the child of the spirit king. It's something like that. And he's the reason the whole war is happening. It's because he wants to be immortal. So yeah, he's 7 mana for a 3/3. But he has Vigilance and he's indestructible and he has Bushido 5. So he's like actually quite a huge beat stick, which is fun to see. Sensei Golden Tail is 2 mana for a 2/1. It's a samurai with Bushido 1, and you can make your other creatures into samurai and gives them Bushido, which is like pretty fun. But what I think really should have been here is Oathkeeper, which is Takano's Daisho, 3 mana for a legendary artifact. Equipped creature gets +3/+1, which is a really decent boost. And whenever the equipped creature dies, it basically just comes straight back into play if it's a samurai. But if Oathkeeper is destroyed, then the equipped creature gets exiled. But the fact, like, you've got so many samurai, you put this on any one of them, and like they will just then never die, I think is like a really fun design. I think that would have fit in really perfectly in this. So in summary, I think this is like honestly, it's pretty solid. I don't think it's doing anything too exciting because at the end of the day, it is just a white weenie deck. But yeah, like samurai are kind of cool, and yeah, they might be a little overcosted. But overall, I think it's perfectly solid. I think you would had a perfectly good time getting this one, playing it out of the deck, playing it out of the box even, and just it's very straightforward. It's white weenie. Everyone likes white weenie. You just go wide, attack with a bunch of samurai. Yeah. But that's my opinion of the deck. What did you think of it after seeing it? Did you have this deck? Did you play it? Did you make changes to it? What was your experience with it? Stick a comment below. I'd really like to hear what you have to say. But I'll be back next time. We're now done with Champions of Kamigawa. We're going to move on to Betrayers of Kamigawa, which if you know anything about Betrayers of Kamigawa, there's a certain deck in that set that I'll have a lot to say about. But I'll have to wait until next time. Thank you for watching and listening, and have a good day.